There we go. We should be going live right now on Facebook. Just want to take a second, make sure everything's running properly in Techie land. I don't necessarily trust computers. And here we go. I can see myself on Facebook. And I just want to make sure, Doug, everything's good on your side, you think?
It looks like it. I'm just making sure it's on my Facebook too.
All right. All right.
Just give me a second. I'm gonna put it on the Musicfest Facebook page too. So
yeah, no, we'll take a second and make sure everything's working great.
oh, it won't allow me to share to a page, so we'll have to just go with that. I think.
Right. Yeah. Well, and we can always share it later on as well once we're all done. But I do see it's popped up. It says that you've shared the video, so we should be, and I've got other pages as well, so we'll make sure we share it off to the universe once we're all
right.
So, awesome. Well, I just want to say thanks so much, Doug. I know things are crazy busy. Here we are, less than a week before the gates are going to open for the campground and Island Musicfest. I'm feeling pretty relaxed. I actually drove over last night, made sure the Wi-Fi is working. I'll be meeting with Brooks a little bit later on today, and we'll be hooking up modems for Crestland's camper and making sure the main gate is in campground gates are 100% by the end of the day. So next week it's going to be for me hopefully a walk in the park. So
right.
That's what I'm hoping for. And for those that don't know, I'm just going to get rid of our images that I've thrown up here. I'm interviewing today Doug Cox, the artistic director of Island Musicfest, and I've had the pleasure of working with Doug over the last, it seems like 10, 15 years or so. Admired him from afar long before that. And so I really just want to appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. And how are you feeling right now with a week to go?
Well, I'm feeling pretty good. I've been getting some sleep, which is a good thing. There's been a lot of surprises this year that just because of COVID and post-COVID, and so when a lot of things that we didn't anticipate in regards to suppliers and just getting stuff here and all that kind of stuff. Marcy and Crestland, Marcy's our operations manager and Crestland's our production manager, have literally been working from like 9 a.m. till midnight every day for the last 3 weeks or so. So I'm in way better shape than they are. I have to, my job at this point is to just make sure that all the performers are coming and to oversee that everything's being done on time and that kind of stuff. So pretty good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not doing too bad.
Nice. And I've been talking with Crestland pretty much every day or so. Again, you talk about an event that's been going on. When was the first year Musicfest started?
1992, I believe, was when the society formed. 92 or 94. Yeah, it's been a long time.
Wow.
And we've been with it for a long, long time. So I played at the first two.
Yeah.
I was living in Victoria at that time, and that's really what attracted myself and Marcy, who's also my partner, to move up here to the valley. And then we got involved, and we've been doing it ever since.
Wow. And what was it called at the beginning? It wasn't Island Musicfest. It had a different name, I think.
No, at first it was called the Comox Valley Folk Festival.
Right.
And then I wanted to bring in jazz and classical and electronic music and all that stuff. So we changed it to Comox Valley Music Fest. And then, believe it or not, I went down to Victoria to promote the festival. And I discovered that there was a whole bunch of people in Victoria that didn't know where the Comox Valley was. Now, this was a long time ago, right? Things have changed quite a lot since then. But I thought if people on Vancouver Island don't know where the Comox Valley is, and we want to create a world-class festival, then we need to give it a name that's going to have a bit more punch. So at that point, we changed it to Vancouver Island Musicfest.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, when I look at, my origin stories, as it were, to coming to the Valley. I was skiing up in Mount Washington with my wife. We were also living in Victoria, and our car broke down, and we ended up in town for a day where our car was getting fixed up, and we just were walking around, and we could see people kayaking. Our car was being fixed up right by the Chamber of Commerce office, which is by the kayak place, and we saw the kayakers, the air park, the mountain, the ocean, and we just went like, this is where we want to be, and we literally just bought a house without really thinking about it a heck of a lot, and so. I look back, my background was in fine arts, and I got to be president of the Comox Valley Youth Music Center. But I had no idea the art scene here. And when I first heard the music festival, which I can hear from my house when it happens, I was just, it's one of those things that just makes the Comox Valley, in my opinion, like the center of the universe. It's a gem and a jewel, an amazing event. And again, you're talking about those challenges over the last couple of years, and the fact that it kind of had a virtual flavor the last couple of years. Was it online in 2020 and 2021 or
2020? We just did a little 3-hour celebration. I have a recording studio here, so we did that straight out of my recording studio. And then 2021, we actually did a fairly extensive weekend-long festival. I think we had 40 hours of programming, of which we produced about 30 hours ourselves. We did all the filming, all the editing, and all of that stuff too. So it was fun. It was really fun to do it for 1 year, but it was not a music festival.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. Well, and I know for myself, I've sold my company, but for years, even before the company and during, I would live stream events like the telethon or debates if they're municipal, federal, provincial kind of thing. So I anything that I was interested in, I'd always try to live stream it and get that audience up. And one of the things that I think from a nonprofit perspective is there was a lot of uncertainty. And I'd say for the fundraising events like the telethon, even if we look at the Ghana bicycle that became virtual, the bicycle ride, or their the coldest night of the year walk, they actually saw increases in the amount of money they were able to generate. And so that's something that's really inspired me in our community, is just the fact that everybody does try to support it as much as possible. And on that note, one of the numbers that I just think is absolutely staggering is the amount of volunteers that come out to make Island Musicfest run. And you've kind of talked about the executive team yourself, Marcy, Cresslin, amazing. But how many volunteers do you have?
Well, this year I think we're around 1,100. We tried to cut. We looked at our organization. We usually have 1,300, give or take, 40 or 50. We had to cut back this year in every way that we could. So one of the things we did was shut down our offices and our warehouse because we just couldn't afford to stay there over the pandemic. But also with the volunteer organization, we needed to cut it back just a little bit. So I think we're around 1,100 this year. And it is astounding because the volunteer spirit here in the Comox Valley is phenomenal. It's not, dare I say, it's not quite like that in Victoria. Part of what really appealed to me to move up here was you just get that sense when you come up here, and anytime there's a benefit concert or a benefit for any worthy cause, the Comox Valley just really gets on top of it and supports each other. And I hope as we grow that's not something that we lose, or as the baby boomers get older. Like we're having a bit of a drop off right now with our volunteers that are knowledgeable and experienced. So one of our big issues this year has been we have 40 volunteer crews, and each volunteer crew has a coordinator and a co-coordinator. And the reason we do that is because if our coordinators have to leave, we've got a second person that can step up and knows the job. But we had quite a drop off this year, and a lot of that was because we've lost some folks, and a lot of it is because folks have just, their life priorities have changed since the pandemic, so it's been interesting to deal with that. Another thing that happened was when we were first announcing that we were going to do the festival, we were still under provincial restrictions in regards to vaccinations. And when that happened, we were going to lose about 15 of our very key site crew volunteers. And these are the folks that go down a week before the festival and build the site as volunteers, which is extraordinary. A lot of people take 2 weeks off to work at the festival, right? So we were going to lose about 15 of those very key people. And they've been with us for 20, 25 years, and they really know their job. It was quite frightening. And then all the regulations changed, so we were able to invite everybody back. And out of, say, 15 that weren't going to come because they weren't vaccinated, we have about 12 of them that have now come back. Whew, thank God.
Absolutely. And I have to say, because I've worked side by side with the volunteers and staff at Musicfest, like I said, for well over a dozen years. And the thing that I can say about the volunteers is that they're not just people who show up. These are experienced people. So you've got, you talked about all the crews you have. You have electricians there, you have carpenters, you have all sorts of very professional people. Like you said, that they're taking time out of their day to make sure that this festival happens. And so I can tell you, you've got at least 2 more volunteers this year. My son and daughter, Megan and Connor, they've signed up to help out.
Fantastic.
And so and they've been running their own bottle recycling company the last couple of years, pretty much since the pandemic started, and they've done unbelievably well. It's almost a little scary because they're allowed to spend their money on whatever they want. But when I said, you have the option to volunteer for Musicfest, they jumped at the opportunity. So I think one of the things, even though they were kind of focused on working on the green team and recycling and stuff, the fact that you see that huge list, and a lot of the different volunteer areas said that they were at capacity. So that was kind of nice from my side to see that. Like you said, I mean, there may be some more volunteers needed. And so for those that are wanting to volunteer and you're watching this, there is a link either up there, down there, off to the side, wherever it happens to be. So make sure you go there and check out the link to volunteer. It's absolutely critical to make sure that these types of events keep going on. Now I have an interesting question for you. So I feel like I've known you for a long time. We've sat at many years as the gates open up, and that sort of that adrenaline rush for me that that the technology is working, for you that it's kind of the start of the festival and people are coming in. But I still felt the need that I had to Google Doug Cox just to make sure the man, the myth, the legend, all that. And so I've got some more serious questions, but one of the things that I found really interesting about your Wikipedia page is it says that you were born. Do you know what it says about when you were born?
No, I don't.
Okay. So so obviously you don't Google yourself maybe as much as you should, but it says you were born in 1962 or 1963. So and I thought that was absolutely hilarious when I saw that. So can you clarify for the entire world what year you were born?
I was born in 1962. That's funny.
And so I do want to ask some questions about you, just because I think one of the things, like, when I heard about you, I was dealing with, I was president of CYMC, the Comox Valley Youth Music Center, working with Betty Ann Hampton. And Betty Ann had just nothing but amazing things to say about you. And I think at the time, even some of our students, they would volunteer, and there was some tickets that we would give you for some of our shows and vice versa. And so it seemed like there was a great synergy there. And so even though I think most people may or may not know you as Doug Cox, like the artistic director of Island Musicfest, what are some of your highlights of your career that you think that you'd like people to know about?
Oh boy. Whew. Well,
And
I've
remember,
kind of had,
this isn't a 3-hour show, so we got
yeah.
to we'll do the documentary another day.
Okay, I've had an amazing career as a musician to start with. I've gotten to tour all over Europe and North America numerous times, and played with folks from, John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin to Amos Garrett, who's one of the best guitar players you could ever find. I've had a really privileged kind of Forrest Gump life where I just feel like I've just managed to be in the right place at the right time by sheer luck a lot of the time. My career as a festival person started when I was 18 in Edmonton, and I was working in a record store, and these two older guys would come in and I'd tell them what records to buy. And I had no idea who they were. And then they came in one day and they said, "You want to come work for us?" And I said, "Well, who are you?" And they said, "Well, we run the Edmonton Folk Festival." And I said, "Sure, I'd love to," because I was kind of tired of just working in record stores and stuff. And went and worked for them. Their names were Don and Nelson Whalen, and those are the folks that started the Edmonton Folk Fest. So for 3 years, I got to work for them. And that's really where most of my skill in festival production and in the philosophy of running a community event came from, was directly from them. Then I moved to Victoria because I wanted to start my own kind of things, my own production company and festivals, and tried that for 8 years. Excuse me, failed miserably at it. I ran 3 or 4 events and produced about 200 concerts in Victoria and played 5-6 nights a week in bands there as well. Came up here, saw the festival up here, fell in love with the community, mostly thanks to Betty Ann Hampton and her late husband, Gid. They were my first friends up here, and Betty Ann and I worked together as a team for a little while, producing shows. And the festival thing went from there. So I've sort of had these parallel careers, in music production, in the music business, and as a musician all throughout my whole life. I've been doing it for over 40 years now, which is hard to believe.
Well, and I think like when you list off the folks that you've played with and the ability to travel around the world, I think one of the interesting things that I find about the Comox Valley is there's a lot of distilled talent here that doesn't necessarily get that recognition locally. Like they go around the world and they're known in other locations, but they're not necessarily that well known in the valley itself necessarily. And so I'm always excited when we talk about sort of what people are doing and where they're going. I mean I get to talk to a lot of people, and so I'm always excited to hear about those things. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. And my next question, I'm going to preface it with my favorite memory of Island Musicfest, and I've got a photo here. I think if I can bring it up. Hang on one second. And but it was certainly one of those things where many years ago, I think it was probably about 5 years ago, we were there, and we've been bringing our kids to Island Musicfest for quite some time. And I'm just gonna bring this image up here. It's gonna take a second. There we go. Now I can probably
I remember that picture.
I could probably get rid of this one here. So there, that's nice and big there. So this is our son Quinn back in 2017. Yeah, there we go. And the Bare Naked Ladies were going to play, and so for a long period of time we talked about how the Bare Naked Ladies were coming, and Quinn was so excited to see this band, and the look of disappointment. And again, we hyped this up for weeks, and when we had magnifying glasses or binoculars that you don't see here, and he's looking and he's like, those aren't ladies and they're not naked, just that weird, why would a band call themselves this when they're neither of those things? So I appreciate you humoring me and my again, favorite memory of Musicfest. But maybe with that, if you could share maybe one of your favorite or two favorite memories of Musicfest.
Oh, there's just so many, I mean, personally, my oldest daughter, Riley, who's an adult now and has a beautiful son and another child on the way. When she was little, I remember at one point she turned to me and she said, "Daddy, does everybody have their own festival?" Wow, what a great world that would be.
Yeah, yeah.
And how much less criticism would there be?
Absolutely.
I mean, a lot of my memories that really stay with me, there's all the amazing performers over the last, almost 30 years now that have come through there that are gone, the legends of just about every style of roots music that you could name, people like John Hartford and Guy Clark and Bo Diddley, and I mean the list just goes on and on and on, right? So there's all these musical memories and the memories of some of the favorite programming that I did. I really love programming workshops and jam sessions and that kind of thing. But the ones that really stay with me are more the personal things, just the friendships and the time spent hanging out with the volunteers and the site crew and all the other crews. Watching people's kids grow up and become volunteers at the festival. We're now starting to experience almost a third generation of people that are getting involved, and that's wonderful. I have dear friends who have spread their children's ashes at the festival because the festival has meant so much to them in the community. I mean, there's just so many of them, but it's those personal ones that are the ones that really stay with you after a while. The glitter of the show business part, not so much at this point in my life,
Yeah.
It's more the positive effect we've had on the community. When I first moved here, there was quite a bit more open racism and division in this community between people of alternate lifestyles, and I remember one time we had a big fire. You probably weren't around quite that far back, but someone torched the bridge on Dove Creek Road. Bunch of rednecks. They sped through our parking lot screaming, "You guys are all a bunch of effing hippies," and then they drove over the Dove Creek Bridge and they threw a Molotov cocktail on the bridge and they torched it literally. And when that happened, it was about 2 or 3 in the morning, and we had about 2,000 people sleeping in nylon tents just 100 feet away from that burning bridge. So there's memories like that are not necessarily positive, but they sure do stick with you. And now we can tell these stories and kind of revel in how we handled it and how it all turned out okay. More importantly, I think one of the biggest things our festival has done is brought together our community in all its components. So I always like to say the bikers are sitting next to the yuppies, who are sitting next to the hippies, who are sitting next to the millennials. And to me, it's really the only time that all these people gather in our community and are introduced to people from different cultures and different lifestyles. And I've literally seen people change their minds, their opinions about other people, because they've actually met someone at the festival who might represent a part of society that they've always been afraid of and hated. And once you meet someone and get to like them, it's pretty hard to hate who they are once you become more knowledgeable about that. And I think Musicfest played a huge role in that in the earlier years in this community. Sorry, that's kind of bouncing off the topic, but
Well,
but that's a
it's
memory. I mean,
actually-
that to me is super important memory. You know, we've also really expanded the professionalism in regards to producing events here. People have come and learned things at Musicfest and then gone off and done their own things with that knowledge, and that's all really wonderful to see. I watch my own time clock of my kids growing up quite often by thinking about what they've done at the festival as well. You know, and there's a lot of people who are gone now, who were key volunteers or just people that I might only see once a year at the festival. You know, so as I walk through the festival site, in particular when we're setting up, I see people who aren't there anymore, at very key places, right? And we carry that with us, and that's a huge part of what the festival is to me as well.
Mm. Well, I really appreciate that, and I know. Well, I'm a bit of an artsy fartsy guy to be fair, but I know I've got a bit of ADHD, and my mind kind of bounces around a little bit. But I think it's actually absolutely critical about what you're talking about, and when I look at my sort of feeling when I joined the community when we moved here. And and I was able to join Rotary and work with the Chamber of Commerce, worked with Comox Valley Youth Music Center, and kind of volunteer my time around working with kids at risk. There was a crisis program that we actually worked with the snowbirds at the base with, and all those kinds of things, which those were things I was doing, when I grew up in Salmon Arm in the interior. I volunteered for the Roots and Blues Festival in Salmon Arm, which, I think again is a staple and amazing. Like you said, it set the stage for me of like, these are careers that I can go in. Just in Salmon Arm, I was, worked in professional plays. I was in Victoria. I worked at UVic, and was able to teach some lighting and sound courses. And really, even though I like being on stage and like talking, I realized that I also have an aptitude for this technology, and so it sort of allows me to do the technical stuff like what I'm doing right now, but also some other things. And
well, we're very, very grateful for that. You saved our butts this year.
Well, and again, it was, not to get into the details, but yeah, I mean, you come in after 2 years and it's like, all right, we got everything rocking and rolling. And then poof, it's like, oh my, everything has changed. And when you think you're not going to have internet, when your gates are absolutely dependent on it, that's critical. Not just that, but staff and all the information, people being able to go on social media, all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, so I feel like we've been able to turn that around, and we were able to get a couple of sponsors out of it as well, which I felt a little awkward because I'm not officially anything. I was just like, hey, can we make this happen? And working with Kreslin, she gave me the go ahead to do a couple things, and it's come together, I think, extremely nicely. And like I said,
and
I think
that's a big part of the festival is people like yourself. So many people who just see something that needs to be done and they go and they do it for us, and we wouldn't be around without that. We're all clicking and pointing and trying to make as many things happen. And especially this year, it's just been crazy, For example, we weren't sure we were going to have enough paper available to print our program this year in time when we went to the printer. Our merch, we don't have as much merch as we usually do because the supplies just aren't available. Our front of stage barrier, which is super important for our insurance had disappeared. So we had to get that from Vancouver. I mean, I could go on and on and on with now we have the airlines, right? Who have just announced that basically you're screwed. I don't know if you saw that note that came out from Air Canada yesterday, but it's like, oh my goodness. They're just basically throwing their hands up, Sorry, I'll turn that off. So it's all part of the adventure,
Yeah. Well, and I think for myself, I always think of the outcome, and I did theater for many years, and my favorite is always improv. But even when I did live rehearsed theater, my favorite parts would be like I'd get very anal about memorizing my lines and stuff, but nothing I liked more or enjoyed more than when a fellow actor would forget their lines or forget their mark or whatever it is. And now you got to freewheel it. You got to improvise and get through the scene, because no matter what's going on, you've got an audience sitting there that's paid money to come see you. And so, nothing I like more than at the end of the play, people going, not only did they not know that there was a problem, because that's part of it, is the magic of not knowing that something's gone horribly wrong, but the usually what you'd get is they'd say there's that one part where everybody just seems so much more energetic and focused. Right. so and often it comes out as a much better part of the play. I do remember one time having the set actually fall on me, and that was less exciting because it was in the middle of a scene, so we kind of had to fix the set while we continued on. But I think that's those are the memories of live theater and a live performance that's just totally awesome.
Absolutely.
So I've got a couple other questions. So one was around the schedule for Musicfest. So I'll maybe I'll bring that up. I think I've got it over here, and there's the schedule. And I'll just make sure if I go like that, that'll make it a bit bigger.
You could knock me out too if you want.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. I didn't want to be too rude, but since you offered. So this is the performer schedule. I don't know if you want to go through it a little bit. I mean, I'm always impressed with the folks that come and play. But do you want to speak to the schedule at all?
Sure. I mean, this is just the concert bowl, the evening stage concert bowl. We have 6 stages for people that haven't been to the festival that run throughout the day, with all kinds of song circles, instructional workshops, what we call sessions or jam sessions. And in a way, that's a really exciting part of the festival, because that's when the musicians all get to come together and do things they don't do as part of their normal shows. A lot of people say that's where the real magic happens, but this is the evening lineup. And we always start with the traditional local Indigenous welcoming, and the Kamagway Cultural Society and Wedledi Specker are kind enough to come and do that for us. And then the Dirt Road Opera is a fabulous band from Penticton. Junior Gone Wild is like a legendary rock and roll band from Edmonton. They were one of the first alt country bands as well in Canada. William Prince is an Indigenous performer from Manitoba, who is now one of the top performers in Canada in the roots music world. Femi Kuti and the Positive Force. Femi is kind of the heir to the Afrobeat scene from his dad, Fela Kuti. And if you like African music, it doesn't get any better than that. He's coming with his big band. And then rather than book a final night headliner, I thought I'd try some different things this year. So Shakura Sayada, who is no stranger to Musicfest, she's been there a few times, is a Afro-Canadian now blues singer. And I asked her if she'd put together a woman's blues review. So the entire band is female, and all the performers she's bringing from across North America are also female. So this is like an unprecedented gathering of the very best blues singers from across the United States and Canada, all coming together at our festival. And that's really exciting, because those are the kind of things I like to see at Musicfest, where it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to see something like that. John Boutte is the voice of New Orleans. For those of you that watched the TV show Treme, which was that wonderful show about New Orleans, John's the guy who sings the theme song for that. He's been to the festival before as well. Theron is probably the one of the first lesbian folk singers who came out and supported that scene and developed that scene. And she's also one of the best songwriters in North America, for sure. Taj Mahal is Taj Mahal. If you don't know who he is, you probably live under a rock.
Yeah.
And the blues band is a really cool story, because they've been together forever in England, and they were one of the, along with Long John Baldry, were probably one of the lead bands from the 60s on in the British blues scene. And they're on their farewell tour right now. Dave Kelly, who is in the blues band, has come to our festival 3 times before and always brings a really special guest with him. And I've been trying to get him to bring the blues band, but he's never been able to. So he actually phoned me, a year ago, I guess, and said, you know what, we're going to do our reunion tour. What if we do the last gig we ever do at your festival?
Mm,
which for people who are fans, that's a phenomenal thing. So we get to witness their last concert together.
wow.
The Music Fest Old Time Radio Show, I just wanted to do like a WSM Grand Ole Opry kind of thing, almost like a cheesy old time radio show with a bunch of our festival guests. Jim Burns is going to come and be the host of that, and we have people like Diamond Joe White as special guests who are going to pop up and make an appearance. Matt Anderson is one of Canada's top blues singers. He's been to the festival before. Family South, we had the Muscle Shoals All Stars in '99 at the festival, and the guy that brought us that group is a wonderful man named Andreas Werner, who lives in Nashville, which is just not too far from Muscle Shoals. And that worked so well that I said, let's do something else this year. So he's put together this group of kind of legendary singers from different aspects of the South, and he's bringing some of the Muscle Shoals stars with him. Sherman Holmes was with the group called the Holmes Brothers. AJ Crochet is Jim Crochet's son, but he's also completely got his own career. The legendary Ingramettes are this amazing gospel trio, Baptist gospel trio from the Southern United States. And Vanessa Thomas is Rufus Thomas's daughter, who's the guy that wrote Walking the Dog. And she is also Aretha Franklin's backup singer for a long, long time. And the
Wow.
Durham County Poets are from Montreal, and they are a wonderful rhythm and blues band. So that's basically the nighttime lineup. And although it doesn't have any huge names in it, it's musically, I think it's all over the map, and it's just going to be a wonderful celebration. How's that?
That was great. And I'm just going to bring up the website just because, I mean, I just had the list of performers there that you kind of spoke to. But if you go to, islandmusicfest.com and you click on the performers link here, you can actually go down and you can read about Taj Mahal and Her Majesty and really delve into, I think, a lot of things that you were talking about, and really, this is probably a good time to push people to the website. So, for instance, you've got all this background information from the performers themselves, and if we go up to the top, there's the schedule that we were just looking at. And then there's links to the actual stage schedules. There's a schedule by artist if you want to look at, a particular artist and when they're going to be here. But it's probably a good time to actually start talking about tickets. So I'll bring up this page here. So obviously you can come out and get some tickets. But what can you tell me about tickets right now?
Well, right now we're doing quite well. We originally planned the festival this year for 75% of our capacity, which is 10,000 people a day, because we weren't allowed to go beyond that because of the pandemic. And then they opened things up. So now we're back to being able to sell to full capacity. So we have gone slightly over our original target, which we're thrilled about, of course. But there are still tickets available. There's weekend passes available, and there's day passes for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday still available as well. Camping is sold out. Our campground fills up real fast every year, and it's gone for this year. But there are still tickets available to the festival.
Excellent. And again, I mean, and this is one of the things. I mean, obviously, it's a great event. But if there's any way that we can help people buy tickets and experience this event and support the festival and all these artists, then obviously get over to www.islandmusicfest.com, pick up your tickets while you still can. And other than that, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to talk about in terms of Music Fest. One of the things that I did want to just kind of talk about a little bit, and I think you and I have joked about this a little bit from time to time, and that's how you're basically the mayor of Music Fest, right? Of Island Music Fest, and when we look at it in terms of other municipalities, Cumberland, I think, has about 4,000 people in it, and you kind of alluded to it. But how many people are at Music Fest on a given day?
Well, when we're full, it's 10,000, and that includes everybody. That includes the volunteers and the sponsors and all our performers. I would anticipate it'll be about 8,000 this year, but we still have a few days left, so tickets could go could go a bit crazy, you know. So it'll be between 8 to 10,000 people a day on the site. We always joke and say that during the weekend of Music Fest, we become the third largest town in the Comox Valley. We're bigger than Cumberland.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I know, and I think, you know, and you have those challenges. You have to deal with sewer, water, food. I mean, you know, really, first aid, fire protection. You know, all of the things that a municipality has to look after. Plus put on music, like, to entertain people and make sure that they're having a good time. And I think, you know, if I look at the city of Courtenay, you know, we do lots of stuff to our parks and recs, and I totally appreciate all the work people are doing. Tomorrow we're going to have the Canada Day Parade, which is probably our biggest event of the year, and you know, thousands of people come out to watch the parade and to really just celebrate. But yeah, it's a different thing. I mean, it's kind of the sole purpose of Island Musicfest, and certainly very appreciative. I'm unbelievably appreciative. I'll be there on Saturday night to make a proclamation around Music Fest and the impact that it has on our community. You've talked about the social impacts, which I think are absolutely critical, and I couldn't agree more. But there's also artistic impacts, like how musicians and volunteers and people can really get involved. My son Quinn, who we saw a picture of there earlier, 1 year, maybe, and I'm not sure if it was the last Music Fest or the one before, but there was it was almost karaoke style, where people put names of songs into a hat, and then the performers just played it, and his song got picked first, which was Spider-Man, and you know, and I know Sarah Hagan, and so, you know, I introduced him afterwards, and he got so focused on piano. He started taking piano lessons. He's now taking drum lessons because he loves, like, that rhythmic drum. And I'm like, I played guitar till I was about 10, but I'm not a sit around and practice on an instrument thing. So he hasn't learned that from me, but to really expose my kids that, it has been absolutely amazing, I think, for a lot of people in our community. But lastly, when we talk about impact, the economic impact is absolutely astounding. And I'm not sure if you got the numbers at the tip of your fingers right now, but you sent me some stuff around the impact, and I wonder if you could speak to that just a little bit around that economic impact.
Sure. Bob, first of all, I just want to point out to people who are watching this on my page, they might not necessarily know you, but you are the mayor of Courtenay. And they might not know that if they're from far away. And I just want to say we are so lucky to have you as our mayor. And I mean that very sincerely. You've been such a huge help to us in just normalizing people's opinion of our festival. Because for years we battled this thing that we're all just a bunch of hippies hanging out in a field, right? Getting high or whatever people think. And we're not, I mean, we are a bunch of hippies, but at the same time, we're a bunch of hippies with families, and now we're grandpas and grandmas, and we are really, truly a family event. A lot of people say their favorite thing who come from far away to the festival about our festival is the community vibe, you know, and festivals have become more professional over the years. So there's a lot of festivals that are almost like money grabbing events. They're held in huge parking lots, and there's people drinking beer on the back of their pickup trucks, and they don't treat their customers that well. They don't treat their volunteers that well. But ours is this amazing little community thing, and you've really helped that people's awareness of that. So I appreciate that a lot. You know, as far as the economic impact goes, most of the studies about festivals, folk festivals in Canada, is that for every dollar spent on producing the festival, there's $3 to $4 spent within the community. This comes from studies that Heritage Canada did and that some of the other festivals did. We have a $1.4 million operating budget, which means that every year that we exist, we bring at least $3 million into the Comox Valley. It could be as many as $5 million each year, right? We spend, out of that 1.4 million, we spend at least $300,000 to $400,000 ourselves producing the festival right within this community.
Mm.
So it's significant, it's a big economic driver. We've also seen a lot of people move here that have came to visit the Comox Valley for the first time, coming to the festival, or come back and take advantage of all of the other things you can do while you're here, go skiing or go fishing or go golfing or that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a serious business, and part of what we try to do is we don't want people that come to the festival to feel like they're taking part in a serious business, right? We want that to all be underground. We want everyone to come and feel like they're just at this magical event and not think about the business of it or that kind of thing. But those of us that are on the staff and on the board take that part very seriously. And fortunately, it's, when you consider we've been around for 30 years now, at $3 million a year at least, that's pretty significant. So yeah, it is. It's a big economic driver, and it's a big tourism driver. One of our frustrations right now is that unfortunately we are at the peak of the tourism season. That's when our event happens. So I know that a lot of the local businesses want to see big tourism events happen off season, especially the hoteliers and folks like that. And we have to figure out how to deal with that, because they would probably be more supportive of us if we happened at a time that wasn't already peak season, but we can't do that, So yeah. So the economics of it are quite staggering. And that doesn't include any of the stuff that happens outside of the Comox Valley after the festival. Like, a lot of musicians meet each other at our festival and go off and make records together and then tour all over the world together. Through my job with Musicfest, I take on other jobs. Like, I'm on the Juno Awards steering committee, for example. I'm part of a national organization of festival directors. I'm often called by people that are arts politicians from a national level. So we're taken very seriously outside of the Valley too, just because we have this track record, right? So it's huge. It's really huge. And we take it all very seriously, and we're professional. But we don't want people to know that if they come to the festival. We just want them to think that they're at a wonderful community, comfortable event, that's safe. And it's like Disneyland. You got to keep all that stuff underground. And the other thing that's a real struggle is that we have to portray this image of absolute success in order to sell tickets, because everybody wants to come to something successful. But at the same time, we have to go to our sponsors and go, it's not true. We really do need your help. So there's that struggle too, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think, like, when I look back on my career, which for most people in the Valley that probably know me, and even when I lived in Victoria, had a very tech-centered side to it, which really just happened by accident. Like, I never took a computer course. I bought my first computer like third year university. Was never something that I thought of as something serious. But I did play video games, which certainly helped, and I had an aptitude for it. But before computers, and even since then, like, I'm a mentor for Futurepreneur and stuff. And when I'm talking to new businesses, like, that branding side, it is one of those things. Like, people are attracted to success, just like you said.
Yeah.
And so there is that sort of fake it till you make it kind of thing of like, projecting like, we're really good here, but at the same time, having that sort of business case to say, this is how we're going to get there, or these are the things that are going to require it. And I think one of the big challenges with arts in Canada and probably North America to a certain degree is the fact that there is that sort of real need for those sponsors to make events and stuff be as successful as possible. And I know, as president of the Comox Valley Youth Music Center, although I worked a lot on branding and website, or just really getting the word out there, probably the thing I'm most proud about is bringing in a very tight budget and very clear policies that would ensure success. So
right.
Whether I was there or not, those are critical things. But yeah, so I do appreciate it. I appreciate the kind words you have for me. Technically, right now, I've got my Music Fest
Right.
shirt on, so I am a volunteer in my mind, anyways, for Music Fest, and you know, and I've, as I've said, I feel so fortunate to be able to volunteer, not just for this, but for so many other super amazing things that are going on in our community. And on that note, I feel horrible because every time there's a performance or something I want to go to, I've been out of town or had another event and haven't been able to make it there. But another cool thing, maybe we'll just talk about for a minute or so, is the Old Church Theater on
Yeah.
Marsden Avenue. So maybe if you wouldn't mind talking about that a little bit.
Well, sure. The Old Church Theater is in Courtney, and it went from being a Catholic church, which was built in 1938, to becoming a theater in 1992, purchased and put together by the Old Church Theater Society, which was mostly run by Beryl Rieger and her late husband. And they have been very active producing musical theater in the community for all these years. Since then, that society, well, because of the pandemic, they haven't been that active, but they've also gotten older, as we all do. So this beautiful building has been sitting there for quite some time, and they allowed me to take it on and try to run it for them. So I've been producing concerts in there now since January, I think it was. We've put on about 16 shows so far. And every single time we put on a show, people come in and say, you know, I got married here, or I used to come here when I was a kid and go to church, or I danced here with my dance classes. People in the Comox Valley who have been here for a while all have these fantastic memories of this wonderful, beautiful building. So I've started programming it, and we started renting it again. We just had a big dance recital in there over the weekend with the Coastal Arts Dance Academy, who is one of our local dance schools. We're having weddings in there again. There's a theater group putting on the Rocky Horror Picture Show in October, which I'm really excited about. And we're doing a lot of concerts, and you can find out about those at oldchurchtheatershows.com. They start up again in August because we're so busy with the festival. But my hope is that we can raise enough money to keep this place going as a theater, and to also continue to improve it. Although the building is so gorgeous, that doesn't need improvements, but there's lots of technical stuff that we need to work on. And it's truly a one-of-a-kind venue in the Comox Valley. It seats 180 people. And I'm excited about it. I'm really excited about what we're doing there.
Awesome. And I did throw a picture up, some of the website there. Again, Old Church Theater,
oldchurchtheatershows.com.
Yeah. And we can put that link into the Facebook afterwards as well, so people can find out where they can get tickets for. And I mean, you have no idea how excited I was when I heard that Rocky Horror Picture Show was going to be put on. So in high school, not only was I a theater geek, but I did parties that were themed parties, and it could be, you know, Fawlty Towers or Monty Python. But I think the party that I have the most fond memories of was Rocky Horror Picture Show. And one of the criteria was everybody had to get dressed up to come over to my house, and we just, you know, we had it on the big 20-inch TV or whatever it was that we had, and it was just so amazing. And so even on Monday, you know, we did the Pride flag raising here at City Hall, and we had Pride Comox Valley and Queer Culture, a couple of groups. We had probably 25-30 people out for the event, and I mentioned that Rocky Horror Picture Show was coming, and everybody was freaking out, and I felt so bad because I was out of town when they were doing auditions, and again, my schedule isn't really good for auditions, but I certainly, if anybody out there from Rocky Horror Picture Show is listening, I'd be happy to work the door. I think, obviously every night has to be dress up night, but if people bringing toast and rice and all the things that you get to do with Rocky Horror Picture Show. So that might be a technical nightmare. So I might be ruining it for somebody, but I'd be certainly happy to support anything like that.
Okay, I'll pass that on. It's the
Yeah.
Three-Legged Dog Productions. Those are the folks that are doing it, and I will pass that on, Bob. It'd be great to have you all. One other thing we're working on there that I'm very excited about is there's a new Comox Valley Youth Theater group starting. And this is starting just independently by a bunch of students from Vanier who want to start a youth theater group. And there's a fairly new person to the Valley whose name is Mandy, who is a theater person from Vancouver who has moved here. She's a teacher, she's a producer, she's a director. So part of what we're going to do is start, what they're going to do, I'm just going to support it in the theater, but they're going to start a theater group that involves training in acting, singing, all the technical aspects, lighting, sound, and use probably some theater improv and more modern theater, which we haven't seen a lot of in the Comox Valley, for young actors to get involved in. So that's going to start in the new year. The auditions for that are going to be in September, but I'm very excited about that. And my son, Devin, who's 17, is one of the 5 or 6 people that are kicking that off as well. So I'm really excited for him too, because one of the things that I wanted to see when I first moved here for my kids was exposure to theater, and we've always had amazing musical theater here, but very little other stuff. So this is all hopefully going to develop into them being a self-run youth theater group that will be a new thing that hopefully 30 years from now they'll all be sitting around and talking about.
That is so awesome. And I mean, when I went to university, I mean, I took theater education, and in my mind, I was going to be a theater teacher. That was my dream. And then I got into arguments with the BC College of Teachers because theater wasn't a real area, and I'd been doing some weird computer geeky stuff. As I said, I got my computer in 3rd year, and so I said, well, I could teach computers, and computers isn't a real course. Get a degree in English or something, and then you could teach. And then I ended up actually getting hired by the Ministry of Education to develop a fine arts curriculum for about 8 months, and it was my dream job. That's where I thought I really wanted to be, was developing curriculum. But it ended up being a little soul crushing for myself. Government isn't
right
wasn't exactly where I needed to be at that point in my life. So I obviously took a left turn, but when I moved to the Valley, my hope was I'd be able to be involved in more theater, maybe even perform a little bit. Even though it hasn't happened a whole lot, I've had some walk-ons and a few things. It's certainly now that I've sold the company, it's where I want to go. And an inspiration for me is Pat McKenna. Who actually, when we talked about the old churchtheatershow.com, he posted it in the Facebook, so it's already in there, and he's been making comments as we go along.
Pat was on our board too until he moved away on the Musicfest board. Yeah.
And we got Kat Curtis has also made some comments about the memories and stuff, and so yeah. Wonderful. So I do hope that I can be somewhat more involved, but given my schedule and stuff, I do feel like I'm participating at least to the level that I can at this point.
Of course. And I know. I mean, we're both theater school people, right? I went to theater school too. If you're good at being an administrator or an organizer, you do end up kind of getting pulled in that direction, especially by the arts community, because so many artists aren't, and I've had the same experience, even with Musicfest. Now it's allowed me to raise my family and stay here, and of course, when you have kids, you start to think about that part. You have to make a decent living as well. And arts administration is really a fun thing, but I have that demon too, where half of me just wants to be an artist. I want to play and write and produce, but you can't. If you're good at administrating and leading, then you do tend to get pulled out. But keep doing it. That'll feed your soul.
Well, and that's it. I just feel even going and participating and like I said, being a volunteer for Music Fest over the last dozen or more years, and being able to use my company to sponsor. I mean that I did see my company as a social enterprise, to make our community a better place.
Yeah, and you sure did
and
do that
yeah,
too. I mean, you brought the technology of Music Fest forward in a huge way. When we moved from having to have the internet in order to run our box office and all of that stuff, you were right there with us, and dragged us forward.
yeah. Well, and good friends with the guys over at ticket.ca.
Yeah,
Nick and Alex, and
yeah,
just bumped into one of them on the street the other day, and again, it's one of these places where and I'm a hugger, right? Being able to hug these guys, we work together side by side, and that confidence that we have that they're experts, I'm an expert, you're an expert, like we're all in it together. As you said, there's going to be mistakes, there's going to be things that we'll be able to laugh about, hopefully after the festival or the event. But just knowing that we're all doing our best to make sure that everything goes off without a hitch, and having fun while we do it, which I think is, I think, having lived in other places, worked in Vancouver, Victoria, in the interior, the Comox Valley, certainly, and I don't know if it's the amenities and the mountains and the ocean and all that, but people here do have a better focus on that having fun while getting things done kind of attitude, so that's one of the reasons I just love it here. So
yeah, me too. It's yeah. I mean, if you're really really serious about pursuing your career in kind of the corporate move forward thing, this is probably not the right place to be. Because we're not a major center, right? And one of the things I've always loved about the Comox Valley is I can come home from being a world traveler and a world musician who plays all over and works with people everywhere, and nobody cares. So when I come home, I'm just dad, and they're not the least bit impressed, with Doug Cox, the musician. And that's a wonderful stabling thing to be able to have in your life. Because if you live in a major center, you can get sucked into that completely, right? And I think it's why we're starting to attract a lot of people here. There's a lot of new people here that are really fascinating. Not to say the old people aren't either, but there's some real heavy people moving here right now in the music industry and in the film industry. And it's really cool to see them coming here. And I think that's part of what attracts them. It's just when you get here, you're just another schmo, and that's really healthy for all of us.
Yeah, the thing I love doing the most, I got to say, is I get invited to talk to classes every now and again, and pretty much since I moved here, like I'd go and talk to career classes about being an employee or getting a job, and I've got a bunch of workshop things that are 10 to 30 minutes long, and I love doing it. And but the best part of it is no one has a clue who I am, and even as mayor, people are like, especially in schools, it's generally not something that they're particularly thoughtful about. But that being said, like, being totally inspired by like the Youth Climate Council for the Comox Valley, that's been putting on events and organizing things, and actually bringing elected officials to things, and so I mean it's but like you said, you go home and my kids they could care less that I've gone and had meetings with the premier or the prime minister or whoever it is politically. They really, it doesn't matter. And in fact, my kid, I'm not a hockey game fan or whatever. Again, I'm more of the artsy guy. But my son Quinn loves hockey. And the other night, I was talking about having dinner with Trevor Linden, and his mind was blown. He's like, "You had dinner with Trevor Linden?" And I was like, "Yeah, we were at a business conference, and he was starting his business, and I was there talking about, at the time, I think my tech guys had just won the fastest growing company in BC or something, and how I thought that was completely bizarre because we're in the Comox Valley, And we literally said, we're not going to have stores outside of the Comox Valley. We didn't really want to expand. We just really wanted to focus on our backyard. But being able to relate with the Trevor Linden, who, his he started a fitness center and stuff. But anyways, yeah, my kid, of all the people I ever met, that's the only one that he thought was cool. So
that's funny, because my son is a gamer, and there's a game, I can't tell you what game it is, but there's one that's full of sea shanties. It's a real famous one. And I met the guy at a music conference who does all the sea shanties on this particular game, and he wanted to come play here. And I just kept thinking, can I sell an entire night of sea shanties, and do I want to? But I came home and told my son about it, and out of all the musicians I've met, or all the awards or anything, that was like the biggest thing of all time, was that I met this guy, who sings I think it's Barrett's Privateers, the Stan Rogers song or something. And it's funny. It's kind of good. It really keeps your feet on the ground when your kids aren't that impressed with what you do. It's a good thing.
Well, when I worked at the Ministry of Education, the one task that I got given, and kind of getting back to this economic side of the arts, is, I was developing fine arts curriculum for K to 12. So that's, dance, music, theater, and actual drawing and sculpture, those kinds of things. And we'd have these meetings, and they'd be like, what's the economic potential of somebody doing that? And this was in around 1997. And I said, well, if I can go and spend a week at Electronic Arts, I'm sure I can come back with some great information. And so, to my chagrin, they said yes. And so off I went, and I got to meet the developers of NHL. And it was 1996, 1997. So it would have been whatever version they were working on. And but I was able to come back and talk about how 3D animation designers out of high school could be making $100,000 US. Back in the mid 90s, musicians were doing soundtracks. You had theater and dance people putting little balls on for motion tracking, dancing around, and obviously Foley artists for sound effects, all that kind of stuff. So I mean, everything to do with the arts had these very well-paying jobs, so for me it was great. But my sons, who are way into gaming, and NHL is one of their favorite games, they've always wanted me to take them back to EA Sports in Vancouver. And so I had the whole thing set up. We were going to go over there, and then we get there, and of course the COVID thing had happened, and so they weren't and nobody could go and visit and stuff like that.
Oh no.
So it was a bit disappointing, because it had been built up in their mind. And I think now it'd be so much different than it would have been back in the 90s, where everybody had to be right there. Whereas now people are they can develop video games, in their basement, right? So,
absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't know that it would have the same energy or impact that it had, but yeah, I mean, it's video games is certainly one of the things that helps me seem maybe potentially a little bit cool with my kids still. So
yeah, I've been working on a project with some developers. There's a company that has developers in Los Angeles and England and Toronto, and we're working on a virtual reality experience together. And I mostly started to do this because I wanted to do something with my son, because he's really into all that stuff. And we're developing a thing that is supposed to take you through all the sensory experiences, but it includes birth and death. So we're developing this VR experience where you go in and you come through birth, and then you go through all the different senses that we have. And if you want to, you can go through death. And for each one of these chapters of this thing, we're composing different music that's all supposed to be connected together, which is a really interesting thing, because if you choose to go one way, the music will morph in one direction. If you choose to go another way, the music will morph in another direction, right? So it's all interactive, and we've been working on this for 2 or 3 years now. But I can completely relate to that, because it's such a different world, right? And it's so much fun, and the technology is so exciting. The only thing that I'm curious about is where does the emotional part component come in? Because for people my age or your age, I don't want to say it's manipulation because it's not really, but emotional manipulation is a huge part of what appeals to us. And in the
Mhm.
gaming world, it's more like it's the firing synapses in your brain that is what appeals to our kids. Um, it's a different endorphin, it's a different rush.
Yeah.
And I wonder how long that stuff can move forward without having that emotional connection, that the emotional part that we're so affected by music and film and theater and all that kind of thing, right? It's
Mhm.
almost like a different part of the human psyche has become a priority to our kids.
Yeah.
And I think it's where there's this huge generation gap, you know.
Mhm.
Sorry, that has nothing to do with Music Fest or anything else, but I'm
No, no, no.
fascinated by that
But
kind
this
of
has been
stuff.
my favorite part of the conversation so far. Not that I don't love Music Fest, but that to me is so important, you know. And I look through you know, the motivations of people, right? And you might not be able to see it, but up here behind me, I've got the new map of South Africa, because I went to South Africa back in 1991 as a very strong-willed 17-year-old, I would say, going to change the world and fight apartheid. And one of the things I wanted to do was understand how people could live in that type of regime. You know, whether you're black, white, like how you can tolerate things, and you know what you can do to make change and stuff. And so I think, you know, one of the things that I think is a big challenge is the distractions of stuff, right? Like Facebook, you know, where, you know, I dragged my feet on Facebook. I had no interest in it. And when I ran for council, my campaign advisor, Peter Vorster, said, you have to get on Facebook. And I went, I don't know, I got like 20 friends on Facebook back in 2014. But, you know, one of the things that I know about myself is that I could be very um, metric driven. So it's like, okay, well, I just need more friends. So, you know, I mean, now I'm at 5,000, right? So in
Right.
7 years or whatever. But the challenge I see, one, I don't like negativity, so I actually don't look at Facebook a ton. Um, and what I've done for myself to make it tolerable is I actually, in the morning, I go on, I look at my memories, like my son watching the Bare Naked Ladies, and I like to share a memory or two if I think they're important. But I wish people happy birthday, because you can look up people's birthdays, and so I'll wish, you know, 10 or 20 people happy birthday, to brighten their day in some way. And but other than that, you know, I do see there's the distraction side of it, but then there's also, you know, that endorphins and dopamine that you're talking about, where it's like, how do I get that feeling as quick as possible? And it's a real challenge, because I think we all have a predisposition to a certain degree, but then there's all that environmental stuff. And I just, again, I come back to Music Fest to draw back into the conversation that, you know, being able to go there with my children, and even at a young age, we'd bring sleeping bags, they'd fall asleep while, you know, maybe Bare Naked Ladies are playing, or whoever that headliner is that starts at midnight or whatever it is, you know, and you know, and sort of that kind of, I don't want to say it's bohemian, but that kind of like, you know, you're just letting yourself go and becoming one with the community, and it's not video games, and it's not like something that's, you know, just there for that momentary side of things, which, as somebody who played video games and still plays video games from time to time, like I could play video games for 12 hours, 24 hours relatively easily, and go to sleep and have no problem going doing something else. I was outward bound instructor, so go out hiking, skiing, very outdoorsy. But I had friends that, like, when they tried to close their eyes, they like just the images just wouldn't go away,
Right.
and it kept
Right.
them hyped up and stuff. So, so I feel I'm somewhat fortunate that I don't have I don't I don't feel. I'm sure some people would say I certainly have faults, and I've been married for 22 years, so I know I've got some faults in there. And my wife and I have been together for about 30 years, but I feel like just personally, I don't go down some of these rabbit holes necessarily. But yeah, I do apologize. We've kind of zigged and zagged a little bit.
Oh, I don't mind at all.
But I mean, we're at about an hour and 15 minutes. I said maybe a half an hour, but it's for me, this has been absolutely fun. I feel like
Me
I've gotten
too,
to know
Bob.
you so much better, which for me is always the thing that makes me want to do this. I wish I had time to do it more, and I'm going to be focused on doing it more. But maybe with that, if you've got any closing comments you'd like to make.
Closing comments. Come to the festival. Come to the Old Church Theater. Yeah, I mean there's first of all, just thank you for doing this. It's been wonderful to talk to you and chill out for a few minutes today. Because otherwise you've heard my phone, right?
I've got mine muted, but I've got two phones and they've been going off.
Yeah,
Probably as much text messages. And...
I'm going to get you pulled into these theater groups too. Now that you've said that, I've got it on tape. So
absolutely. And even if all I do is walk in there and say, "Don't be like me, stay focused."
Well, no, I mean it would be fun.
In.
I think it would be good for you to have a bit of a creative involvement. That's what it's all about, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you've never been to the festival because you think that it's a bunch of people partying their faces off, you've got completely the wrong idea. This is a very family-oriented, community-oriented event. Everybody takes care of everybody. There's lots of respect, and you truly get to see the very best musicians from all over the world. So, if you're a bit nervous about coming because you think it's this big, wild, crazy thing, it isn't at all. I'd like to say that. Even if you just come for one day, you might be surprised at what you come out of it with, and you'll see a lot of your neighbors there. So I just want to encourage people to come. I want to really say thank you to the community for supporting us and keeping us going. It's been a really long couple of years, as it has with everybody. And we were pretty terrified going into it this year because we had no idea how people were going to react. We still don't completely, but the support has just been phenomenal within the community, both in the Comox Valley and the outside music community as well. So part of our feelings are just, oh my God, we can't wait to get through this, this year. Enough surprises already. Let's just go have the festival and deal with it. But then part of it is just this huge anticipation of seeing a bunch of people that are really close to each other, but may only see each other once a year. Like our campground culture is pretty amazing because there's lots of groups of people that meet once a year at Musicfest, and some of them come from as far away as England, and they camp in the same spots or at least with the same group of people every year, and it's the only time they see each other. That's the magic of what we're doing. That's the magic of our event, is this gathering. And we were talking about the difference between emotional engagement, which is like old school kind of stuff, and the video game thing. And I think that there's nothing better for your soul than to be sitting in a field with a whole bunch of people singing. I think that those kind of human gatherings are just so important right now, especially with what we've all been through and with what's going on in the world. It's very healing, and it's good for all of us. And I don't care what your politics are. We try very hard to make our festival open to everyone in the community who wants to be part of it. Obviously, because it's the arts, we do tend to lean a little bit in one way, but we try to welcome everyone. We're a very safe space. We don't allow any crap from anybody. And that doesn't matter who you are. If you're mean or nasty, you're gone. We just don't tolerate any sort of disrespectful behavior or anything like that. So I just want to encourage people to come. I think they and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody there. How's that?
That sounds great. So head on over to islandmusicfest.com, get your tickets, volunteer, look at the schedule, make sure you know that you're there for the events that and performers that you want. Some of the things that Doug hasn't mentioned maybe necessarily. I mean, there's usually some folks selling some stuff there that is very unique. There's the river, so you can walk down to the river and you've got music in the background, you're swimming in the river. Again, when we talk about those memories of our families and stuff, so many great memories, so many stages. We kind of talked about the main stage, but there's lots of different stages with lots of performers all day long. And again, going back to my son Quinn, I believe it was Namdar came and performed one year, and he was just unbelievably blown away by this group, and they were at one of the smaller stages, and he bought his first CD, and he was so excited to have his first CD. And then we saw them walking, and I said, let's go say hi. And they were the nicest people. They signed his CD.
Nice.
And I mean, those are the types of experiences that you get by coming to the festival. And so on behalf of my family, on behalf of our community, I can't thank you enough for what you do, what your team does, what the volunteers do, the sponsors, and obviously everybody that comes and supports. Again, we want to sell out those tickets though, and make sure you guys have just an amazing year and set ourselves up for success for years into the future.
Well, thank you, Bob. Thank you. Thanks so much.
And with that, we've been almost an hour and a half. So I do appreciate your time, and I'll let you get back to answering all your voicemails. I'll get back to mine, and we'll have a great day. And I'll probably see you, if not every day next week, for sure, probably Wednesday when we open up the campground gate.
Right. Fantastic, Bob. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you. We'll see you at the festival.
Bye-bye.
Okay.